Life's journey often takes us through valleys of disappointment and regret, seasons where we look back and see only fragments of shattered dreams and opportunities that seem forever lost. We find ourselves wondering if there's any way to recover the time that feels wasted. The 37 months spent in a relationship that led nowhere, the 8 years invested in a career path that suddenly closed, or the decades spent wandering spiritually, feeling disconnected from God's presence and purpose. These experiences leave deep wounds in our hearts, creating a sense of irreparable loss that whispers, "It's too late now." Yet amidst this despair, Scripture offers us a promise so powerful it can transform our perspective on everything we've endured. In Zechariah 9:12, the Lord declares, "Return to your fortress, you prisoners of hope. Even now I announce that I will restore twice as much to you." This extraordinary promise reveals a God who doesn't just repair what was broken, but multiplies blessings beyond what was lost. When we examine this promise closely, we discover it was given to people who had experienced tremendous devastation. They had witnessed their homes destroyed, their livelihoods ruined, and their community scattered through invasion and exile. Everything they had worked for seemed utterly lost. Yet God promised not just restoration, but double restoration. A concept that stretches our understanding of divine redemption. This same promise extends to us today, reaching into every area where we've experienced loss and offering hope that transcends our human limitations. Understanding divine restoration requires recognizing that God operates outside the constraints of linear time. While we see years that can never be reclaimed, God sees opportunities for transformation that can multiply impact across generations. The concept of restoration in Scripture goes far beyond merely replacing what was lost. It involves transformation so complete that the restored version surpasses the original. Consider the powerful imagery in Isaiah 61:3, which promises beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and a garment of praise for a spirit of heaviness. This exchange represents a supernatural upgrade, where what returns to us is fundamentally different from and greater than what was taken. Perhaps you've struggled with a health condition that consumed 15 years of your life, limiting your ability to pursue dreams and build relationships. Or maybe you spent 22 years in a career that ultimately left you feeling empty and unfulfilled. Some may have endured 19 years in cycles of addiction that destroyed precious connections and opportunities. The specifics vary, but the feeling of irrecoverable loss remains consistent, a deep ache that something precious has been permanently forfeited. Yet God's promise of restoration challenges this assumption at its very foundation, revealing that nothing placed in His hands remains irredeemable. When we surrender our broken fragments to Him, we initiate a divine process through which God begins weaving our losses into a tapestry of redemption more beautiful than we could have designed ourselves. One of the most profound ways God restores wasted time is by extracting wisdom from our wounds. Psalm 90:12 instructs us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Through our painful experiences, God cultivates insights and understanding that could never have been gained through comfort alone. A teacher who spent 14 years battling depression discovered that her journey equipped her with unique compassion for struggling students, allowing her to reach hearts that others couldn't access. Her wasted years became the very qualification for her most meaningful impact. Similarly, the 6 years someone spent in financial hardship developed resilience and resource management skills that later enabled them to guide others through economic challenges. What seems like wasted time in human perspective becomes specialized training in God's redemptive plan. This transformation of pain into purpose represents a form of restoration that doesn't erase our past, but rather infuses it with new meaning. When we recognize how God uses our hardest seasons as preparation for our greatest contribution, we begin to view our history through His redemptive lens. This perspective shift itself becomes part of our restoration, the ability to see value where we once saw only loss. If this message is speaking to your heart today, I'd love to know what area of your life you're seeking restoration in. Take a moment to share in the comments with just one word representing where you need God's restoring touch, whether it's relationships, purpose, health, or something else. Your vulnerability might encourage someone else who's walking a similar path. And if you're finding hope in these words, please consider subscribing to our channel for more messages that bring God's promises into everyday struggles. When you subscribe, you become part of a community seeking transformation together, and your presence strengthens us all. Now let's continue exploring how God's restoration unfolds in our lives. Beyond extracting wisdom from our wounds, God's restoration involves renewing our capacity for joy and hope. In Psalm 30:11-12, David celebrates this aspect of divine restoration. You have turned for me my mourning into dancing. You have put off my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness, to the end that my glory may sing praise to you and not be silent. This vivid imagery portrays a transformation so complete that expressions of sorrow are replaced by celebratory movement. The restoration of joy represents a miracle perhaps even greater than material restoration, for it speaks to healing in our innermost being. Consider those who have walked through 11 years of grief after losing a loved one, gradually moving from questioning whether they'll ever smile again to rediscovering laughter and purpose. Or think about someone who endured 7 years in a spiritually dry season, feeling distant from God and questioning their faith, only to experience a renewal of spiritual passion that burns brighter than before. These restorations of joy don't erase the reality of suffering, but demonstrate that suffering doesn't have the final word in our story. When God restores joy, He also renews hope, that confident expectation of good that empowers us to move forward despite uncertainty. Hope functions as the fuel for resilience, enabling us to persevere through challenges while anticipating breakthrough. This renewed hope changes how we view both our past and our future, transforming our narrative from one of victimhood to one of overcomer. God's restoration also manifests through unexpected open doors and divinely orchestrated opportunities. Isaiah 43:19 beautifully captures this dimension. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. This verse reminds us that God specializes in creating pathways where none seemed possible and bringing abundance into areas of lack. A musician who felt they had wasted 29 years pursuing the wrong career suddenly discovers that every skill and connection from that season perfectly positions them for an unexpected breakthrough. The parent who regrets 13 years of absence or distance from their children finds unique opportunities for reconciliation and new memory-making that heal old wounds. These divine opportunities often arrive in unexpected packages and timing, demonstrating God's creative approach to restoration. Rather than simply replaying the past with better outcomes, God crafts entirely new scenarios that accomplish His redemptive purposes in ways we couldn't have imagined. This creative restoration reflects God's nature as the ultimate artist who continually makes all things new. When we recognize these opportunities as part of God's restoration process, we develop eyes to see His hand at work in circumstances we might otherwise overlook. This heightened awareness itself becomes part of our healing, the ability to perceive God's activity in the ordinary moments of life and cooperate with His redemptive purposes. A vital element of God's restoration is its holistic nature, touching every dimension of our lives. Unlike partial fixes that address symptoms while leaving root issues untouched, divine restoration works simultaneously across physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual realms. The prophet Joel captures this comprehensive restoration in chapter 2, verses 25-26. I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the hopper, the destroyer, and the cutter, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dealt wondrously with you. Notice that this restoration addresses not just one type of loss, but multiple layers of devastation, culminating in both practical provision, eat in plenty, and spiritual renewal, praise the name of the Lord. This multidimensional healing reflects God's concern for our whole being. A person who lost 18 years to anxiety and fear experiences not only emotional healing, but also physical renewal as stress-related symptoms disappear. Relationships damaged through 24 years of misunderstanding aren't just superficially mended, but rebuilt on stronger foundations of truth and grace. Financial setbacks that lasted 9 years are overcome through not just new resources, but transformed mindsets about stewardship and provision. This holistic approach ensures that restoration reaches the deepest roots of our brokenness, creating transformation that sustains through future challenges. When we understand the comprehensive nature of God's restoration, we open ourselves to receiving healing in areas we might not have even recognized needed attention. Before we conclude, I want to sincerely invite you to become part of our growing family by subscribing to this channel. Your presence matters here. Every time you engage with these messages, you help them reach others who may be desperately seeking the same hope you found today. I'd also love to hear your restoration story. Has God already begun restoring something you thought was permanently lost? Or are you still waiting and hoping for that restoration? Share your journey in the comments below, whether it's a testimony of breakthrough or a vulnerable expression of where you're still seeking healing. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today to keep believing for their own restoration. And if this message has given you a new perspective on something you've been struggling with, I'd be so encouraged to hear about that specific insight. Together, we're building a community where brokenness transforms into beauty and where we witness God's restoration promises unfolding in real lives. Thank you for being part of this sacred space where hope is rekindled and faith is strengthened. May you walk forward with renewed confidence that your story isn't over. The God of restoration is still writing beautiful chapters ahead.